Oh, is that him? Hey.
Hello. You look like such a boomer.
He looks like what's his face from Narnia. Wow. That little half goat, half man character. That's what you look like right now.
Bro, that's rough.
Why buy a comic that would cost more than a dime? Come meet the brothers who are here to waste your time.
As some of our listeners may notice, the audio has changed yet again. This is because we are video conferencing, as I am in a different place and time, and one could argue multiverse. So you guys may notice that I'm drinking from a cup. I promise you it is not the whiskey that I wish it was, because I have to stay awake for this. So with all that out of the way, today is a very special episode, ladies and gentlemen. We are not doing the news and what we've been reading or watching or anything nerdy like that. We have one topic tonight, and that is the Justice League and how it is special to tonight's host. Yes, he gets his own name tonight, Spencer.
Okay. Well, I guess somebody just called me a host, at least for tonight, so that's interesting.
You're my host.
What a twist.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
So we're going to be talking about the Snyder Cut, as it's become called. So no further ado, all three of us are present. That's cool. Colin, say hi.
Hi. I'm here.
So sadly, you're going to be hearing a lot of my voice. Apologies. So something that the reason for doing this entire episode based on one topic as a special, still haven't totally decided what I'm going to title it, is because some of the people that Jacob has interacted with had mentioned when they listened that they didn't totally understand why Spencer is droning on and on about something called the Snyder Cut. So Jacob had the idea of, hey, let's do a special on this and other topics eventually to have kind of a video audio primer of sorts. Also, it keeps me from talking about it so much week to week, and that makes Jacob happy.
This episode is probably going to be called Spencer's Big PP for Snyder Daddy.
We're going to call it the Zack Daddy special.
Oh, dear Lord, please no. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over all of my things. We've got an agenda going on. So what is the Snyder Cut? The Snyder Cut is basically the director's cut of the 2017 Justice League film. That's the shortest way of putting it. It's far more complicated. We're going to get into it. So you've probably, if you've ever been on Twitter over the past 3 years, you've probably seen hashtag release the Snyder Cut or something along those lines trending or coming up here and there. It's because there's this version of a movie that was actually the director's vision that was tampered with in many different forms that the audience and the diehard fan base wants to see and wanted to see, more importantly. So getting the attention of the studio via lots of different means. That's the sweetest version of it. I'll get into more detail later. So something that does get tossed around a lot, I just want to get out of the way, is a lot of derogatory comments towards Snyder fans. Understandably so. There are a lot of bad eggs, to be honest. I've encountered plenty of them myself, whether it be in real life, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Every following has a bunch of bad eggs.
Yeah, and they happen to be really, really, really loud, if we're being honest. And some of them are very gatekeepy. They're like, oh, you don't understand this. It's too smart for you. They can be very condescending.
Oh, yeah, very pretentious.
Nobody in the real diehard part of the Snyder Cut community is advocating for that stuff. Nobody is here to dox anybody or blast people off of social media. It's not to complain. It's to make a point. There's a massive difference.
We're just here with the desire to appreciate Snyder's vision for the Justice League.
Right. So that's... Nobody in their right mind is advocating to scream and yell at people in real life or on Twitter or to send death threats or anything like that, which has happened and is very sad. If you've done any of that and you're listening to this, you are a terrible person. Please never do that again.
Get pegged.
Remove yourself from social media for a little while. Get a life. Genuinely, just get a life. So I take the nickname of being a Snyder bot or a Snyder cultist on the chin because it's funny. Like, admittedly, sometimes it can be a little entertaining and a little cringy, to be fair to myself. But
to be fair, it's also a cult following, and that was what I meant when I called you that.
Right.
Is that it's super underground, and there's a surprisingly huge community behind it. So
it's very big, as we'll get into. So that's a piece of housekeeping towards this whole conversation. I just wanted to get out there because the fandom has a bad reputation, to be fair. So after the success of the Dark Knight trilogy, Warner Bros. Pictures approached Christopher Nolan to basically write up a story treatment / executive produce a Superman film of the same vein, being a bit more grounded or approached in a more adult manner, not dark and gritty, but some of the buzzwords that do get tossed around. It was his idea to find another director to helm this, and he strongly suggested Zack Snyder. So that, long story short, kicked off this new interconnected DC film universe that started with Man of Steel. And then you go into Batman v Superman, which if you've been on the internet since 2016, you've probably heard that it's garbage because it's still being talked about to this day in every circle. It's kind of impressive. And way back when, the fans didn't really know about it. The public didn't really know about it, but there was a 5-film main arc of this series. It wasn't meant to be a MCU clone, basically. It was supposed to be Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then 3 Justice League films. That was supposed to be Kal-El, Clark Kent, Superman going on his hero's journey, going through all of those movies. And then there was potential for spin-off films helmed by other directors and writers that would be directly influenced by Zack Snyder. So he was positioned kind of as a Kevin Feige, not really, because he's actually a filmmaker. Kevin Feige is not, but in the sense of being an overseer as well as driving his own vision. It was supposed to be a bit of a limited universe. There's a point, there's an end trajectory. And then with the public reception of Man of Steel being mixed at the time, WB intervened with Batman v Superman on release and had the theatrical cut, which was roughly 30 minutes shorter than the director's actual cut of the movie. Had a horrible reception in theaters, made a good chunk of change. It was like $850 million or whatever, but it didn't go as big as you would expect a movie with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in it. And the critical reception was poor, to say the least. So when you put that in perspective, the studio was already meddling with this plan way back in the second entry in this universe. It didn't look very good for the future. So the director's vision was released immediately as soon as it came out on disc. It's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. It's the actual version of the movie. I don't own the theatrical cut and never will. Yeah, that movie is real rough.
Small peen energy.
Barely feels like a movie. It's so
barely
horrible.
Feels like a peener.
Oh my gosh.
Probably isn't.
No, it's
less of a
choppy
can.
Piece of garbage.
Yep.
Cutting out very integral parts. So the studio was already interfering with the vision going on. Whether or not you think that's correct or not isn't really the point. There's already a track history of it. So when you go immediately after the theatrical release of Batman v Superman, Justice League was supposed to be going into production. All the pre-production was done, sets were built, costumes were done. And then just at that time, the studio told Snyder and his writers, David S. Goyer and Chris Terrio, to rewrite the script. So they did a full rewrite of that first Justice League script. It's fairly, from what we've been told, it's fairly well in line with what it was supposed to be, but it did get toned down. Apparently, there were a lot of things that were too scary for public audiences, to quote Snyder, and would set the world on fire if it actually got shot and released. So it got toned down slightly. And then we have the Justice League film that he was filming. What was everybody knew was Justice League 2017. Most of the way through production was getting shot on this version of the script. So this was what fans would later call the 214 cut. It has a runtime of 214 minutes, not including credits. But because that script was deemed by the studio to be better than the original Justice League script, it was still a, quote, compromised version of his vision. The production was a bit troubled because of the script change just before the movie was shot. Nothing huge, but it had some bumps here and there. Obviously, that brings cost up. You have to delay things. And then there were a lot of rewrites by Jeff Johns, who is a excellent comic book writer who had been working his way up the hierarchy at WB Pictures and DC Films. So he was putting in a lot of rewrites to this script and telling Snyder that they needed to get shot that way. A lot of studio notes. If anybody understands how studio notes work, it's basically, here's a thing that we believe test audiences and the public will find better than what you're doing. So it's quite often it's a lot of silly things like love triangles and more jokes and ripping off other franchises and silly things like that. Some of which are valid to the sense of commercial appeal, some of which are nonsense. The director, generally speaking, should have say over whether or not they follow those studio notes. So after principal photography had wrapped on Justice League 2017, they were in the middle of post-production and they were about to go back for pickups or reshoots, as you probably have heard them called. Which are totally scheduled. That's how movie films work. All of them, they all do it. It's scheduled, it's part of the budget. You miss things, you need better transition shots, you didn't get a take you liked, something like that. It's always part of the deal. And then just before that happened, there was a family tragedy in the Snyder family. One of Zack and Debbie's children, Autumn, ended her own life, and they stepped away from production temporarily at first, and then they announced that they would officially be departing Justice League 2017, and WB had arranged for Joss Whedon, another well-known and fairly well-respected director, to handle the end of post-production and to handle the reshoots that were scheduled. So then the Snyders kind of fell off the map, as they should have. They were taking time with their family to process this tragedy that had happened. And then we go through reshoots, which were rumored and speculated to have been far more extensive than they were originally supposed to be. Unless I'm misremembering, the original reshoots were supposed to be like a month or two tops. That's normal, like blockbuster movie reshoots. They ended up being like 3 or 4 months. The production budget essentially doubled. And it turns out they're reshooting a lot of things that didn't need to be reshot. After this movie got finished, if you can call it finished, to be honest, and was released theatrically, the director of cinematography, Fabian Wagner, who worked with Zack Snyder, this is like his man, said that this movie that got released, as the fans now call it, Justice League, had about 10 to 15% Snyder footage at best. Scenes that were originally shot by Snyder were getting reshot to add in quips and jokes and to change the lighting arrangements and all sorts of nonsense.
They changed like character attitudes towards each other.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm just trying to get through the timeline at the moment to get like a framing device to where all the details fit.
Right.
So it's literally the day that it came out, a fan shout out to Movies That Matter with the Viking, if he ever hears this, put out a tweet on Twitter, just said, #release the Snyder Cut. Immediately knew that this was not the film that we were supposed to be getting. This is not what Snyder wanted.
So he's the one that started it all?
Yep. Great guy. I've had some Twitter conversations with him. Really cool dude. And then that kind of started a trend. Justice League flopped hard at the box office. It made, I believe, around $400 million, which sounds like a lot, and it is. But when you take into account the movie was basically made twice because of how much was reshot, take the original, I believe, $250 million production budget, but between 250 and 300 million, double that because it got reshot, and then add in the marketing budget, which usually consists of the movie's budget for production. So it ends up being like an 800 to potentially $900 million movie once you take into account reshoots and marketing. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then for a movie to quote unquote make money for the actual studios involved, you have to account for how much the theater chains take, which is usually 10 to 15% of overall box office. It's all complicated. So the movie flopped. Like, it's on every list of the biggest flop, not because it didn't make any money, but because of percentage wise, it made like maybe 30% of its overall budget back at best. Definitely didn't make any money profit wise. So it flopped. Fans revolted. Most Snyder fans said, hey, this is definitely not right. Something went wrong here. Trying to get Snyder's attention. Eventually, he came out and said he had never watched the theatrical version. He still says that to this day. People close to him have, like I said, Fabian Wagner, as well as some other people involved, have continued to say it's like max 25% Snyder footage. If what Zack Snyder originally shot was 214 minutes edited into a movie, as we'll come to find out later, and then you take the 2-hour runtime of the theatrical cut it down to 15-20%, it's like 10 minutes out of what's like a almost 4-hour movie. So just that alone is a ridiculous amount of footage that ended up getting quote unquote cut, meaning removed and pretty much burned. So since the release of the movie up until November of 2019, which was the 2-year anniversary of the theatrical cut, it was pretty much radio silence from Warner Brothers, officially speaking. There were lots of rumors floating around. It was just fans campaigning left, right, and center. There have been t-shirt campaigns, advertisements placed in freaking Times Square, planes flying around with banners, everything you can imagine. All of which was profiting the American Center of Suicide Prevention. It's all been done for charity, so it's just trying to get the attention of the studio saying, hey, we want this movie, which over those 2 years, Zack Snyder kept putting images out on his Vero account, basically confirming that he did have another movie in its entirety. All sorts of images from scenes that were in the marketing or we've never seen before. 99% of them were finished or near finished. So it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And when AT&T purchased Warner Media, which is the parent company of Warner Brothers Pictures, apparently all the noise got their attention. Last year in November, that there's a massive push by the fan community. It got the company's attention. They brought Snyder in for a meeting and said, hey, what would it take for you to finish what you were doing? What do we have to do for you? Obviously, there's this massive outcry. We can make money off of this. If, as we can see in the vault, there's basically a finished movie sitting there. What can we do to help you with this so we can turn a profit and you can get the closure that you want and deserve? And they funded what is now becoming Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's not the same as what we would have gotten in 2017. It's better. It's being taken off the leash. The reshoots that are happening right now are in addition to what was already shot. It's being turned into a 4-hour-long miniseries, so there's more footage being added on top of what was already done. Fan speculation seems to lead towards the fact that he's reverting back to the original script of Justice League. As I said, it wasn't massively different. There was just a amount of stuff that had to be trimmed or removed. So judging by production photos and costume designs and all sorts of weird speculative things, it looks like that's pretty much what we're getting, is the original plan. So in a sense, thanks WB for screwing up so hard, because now we're getting what we should have gotten. So that's the timeline. That's as condensed as I could make it within reason.
That is very condensed. I'm impressed at how much you cut out there.
See, that's just the timeline. Now I can get into details. That was the framing device. So again, if anybody doesn't quite understand what's going on, they now can understand the context of it, where things fit in.
I was pouring whiskey.
Oh, more.
No. The first glass was grapefruit soda that I found.
That sounds very peculiar. Could
It's
you
really
not pick
good,
my
actually.
armpit? Could you not? Stop touching me. Okay, headphones going back on properly. So in the wake of the Release the Snyder Cut movement, there have been other spin-off movements, so to speak. There has also been hashtag Release the Ayer Cut, which in its most condensed form, a similar thing happened to David Ayer's Suicide Squad film, which had a lot of studio interference and reshoots and editing problems.
I always thought that was said Ayer because it's spelled Ayer. I just read it as Ayer, not Ayer.
Yeah, I was always curious about that one, and I went and found an interview where he says it correctly, just to make sure I got that right. So, that movie was panned just about as bad as BVS was. It's edited to garbage, apparently, according to the director and also the writer, because he did both. It's a darker, more dramatic film. It's not like a giant music video. Has basically an entire movie's worth of Joker footage in it that just all ended up getting cut. So that's become a spin-off movement that's interlinked, because as a whole, WB Pictures seems, at least during that period of time, not to trust their filmmakers to do anything. And there's also Release the Schumacher Cut, which sounds a bit silly.
Before you go into the Schumacher Cut, I want to say that when you say that the Suicide Cut, the theatrical cut panned, I just want to take the time right now to say that you liked it the first time you watched it. And I was much it wasn't that great.
I did. I was quite literally in denial. About 2 days later, I was like, oh, what have I done? This is garbage. I was so hyped, and I could not process the fact that it was really, really bad. It's very bad. My dad won't let that one go either. And as I said, there's also Release the Schumacher Cut. A similar thing happened way back with Batman Forever. Crazy enough. Apparently, Joel Schumacher had a darker, more psychological thriller of a movie. There have been some deleted scenes that have come out. WB has said that they don't know if this is actually intact, because some of the footage might have been damaged because it was shot on film ages ago. But it sounds like there might be people looking into it, and I find that very interesting. There's like 40 additional minutes that was originally part of the film before it got cut. So this is spread, and it's become a bit of a joke for other things, like Star Wars doing it and all sorts of other things, but it has a further reaching impact. There have been a lot of people in the film industry and the comic book industry that have backed the Snyder Cut movement. Obviously, Zack and Deborah Snyder, Fabian Wagner, Clay Enos, who is the photographer that follows around Zack Snyder. He does a lot of work with him. Jay Oliva, who is Zack's storyboard artist, who worked on this film. The entire stunt crew of the movie, because so much of their footage ended up getting cut. Everybody in the core league, except Ezra Miller, because he doesn't have social media, but everybody else in one way, shape, matter, form has said it. Jason Momoa has been a massive proponent of it, literally screaming and yelling about it. It's been hilarious to watch. Ray Porter, who was Darkseid in this movie, which I will be getting to. Jesse Eisenberg has actually said that a lot of his footage also got cut, and he would like to see it. Joe Manganiello, who played Deathstroke in the film, Kieran Hines, I believe is how you say his name, the actor who portrayed Steppenwolf, J.K. Simmons, who portrayed Commissioner Gordon, David Ayer, Jovian Wade, who's the actor who plays Cyborg on Doom Patrol, has said he would like to see this movie. Diane Nelson, who is the former DC Entertainment president from a few years back. Josh Trank, the director of Fant4stick, whose movie also got butchered by the studio. Scott Derrickson, the director who's most famous probably for doing Doctor Strange. Dave Bautista, Lee Bermejo, the comic book artist, Rob Liefeld, also a comic book artist, Dan Jurgens, also a comic book artist and writer, Ed Boon, the creator of Mortal Kombat, and Boss Logic, the digital artist. I don't know how else to describe Boss Logic. If you don't know who Boss Logic is, just look him up.
I have only heard the name, and that's pretty much it.
Because he does some amazing.
The boomer.
Yeah, he does a lot of.
I have seen some of his art.
Yeah, he does a lot of the custom posters and key art and stuff, fan casting stuff. It's ridiculous. That's just the really big stuff. There's been 1,000 other people and probably quite literally millions of fans. So just to now the fun part where we get to dissect the difference, just the stuff that we know, the difference between the 2017 theatrical cut of Justice League and then the 2021 Zack Snyder's Justice League 4-hour miniseries. I got a nice list of this stuff. If you guys have anything on this, I really do want to hear it because there are some weird things going on. So something kind of major, which you'll notice, the aspect ratio is entirely different. This was originally shot in 1.66.1, which is also known as European widescreen. It's like a happy medium between widescreen and IMAX. If you don't look at it closely, it can kind of look like 4:3, which is like the old school television format. Basically, it allows for more headroom. Zack Snyder explained this not too long ago. It basically allows for more headroom while also having wide shots. So you could have like the entire league talking to each other and see their full bodies in the same shot. It was cropped and edited down to 1.85, which is the normal like theatrical blockbuster cut. So the movie you saw in theaters was quite literally cropped. So there was part of it you just didn't even see, which for me led to it looking kind of cramped. Might just be me, but it always felt kind of smushed in. There was always stuff off camera or out of frame.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
How many times have you watched the terrible cut?
3, I'm ashamed to say. Once in theaters and then twice since then. And I've dreaded it every time even more.
And you've made it through every single time?
Do that to yourself.
The second time was like, it's really hard to do. The second time, I was doing other things at the time. I was multitasking, but it made that strong of an impression that I can still remember a lot of details. Like, I'm not just pulling things out of my butt. So the next thing, which is going to be pretty clear, is the entire musical score was done. Junkie XL, also known by his actual name of Tom Hulkenberg, worked with Hans Zimmer, the god, for Batman v Superman. It was a collaborative project, and he had apprenticed under Hans Zimmer while he worked on Man of Steel. So it was being followed. There was a pattern, the same themes, motifs were all getting passed along, same type of instrumentation. The score was done. The entire thing was wrapped. But he was replaced once Zack had left. Apparently he got fired by the studio and was replaced with Danny Elfman, who is an excellent composer. I can't deny that. Nobody's going to deny that. He's done some amazing work.
He made the Batman animated series theme song.
Yeah, like he's done some great stuff. I really like his work on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. The Nightmare Before Christmas is, I think, his best piece of work because of how symbiotic it is with the movie. Like, it's amazing.
There you go, using that term, symbiotic.
Symbiote. Yeah, but his work as of late has not been too great, if I'm being honest, in my opinion. And when I was watching the theatrical cut at first, that was the first thing I noticed was the movie was the music was entirely different tonally speaking. None of the themes were carried over, which from movies being Man of Steel and Batman v Superman that have a lot of musical synergy, it's part of the DNA of the movie. Cutting it out and then just replacing it with somewhat generic superhero music was disappointing and tone deaf, to say the least. He was rushed, so you can't blame him too much. He had like a couple of months to write an entire film score and to literally record the whole thing, but the way he's acted about it since then has also been really, really gross, to be honest. He's yelled at fans for wanting this apparently non-existent version of this original movie. He's, claimed that there's only been one score for Batman being his. It's like, no. Freaking Hans Zimmer did work on the entire Dark Knight trilogy, and that was excellent. There are very clear Batman themes in other forms of media. Freaking Danny, shut up. Like, just stuff like that. And it's really bad. And he brought back partially, I would say, out of ego, in my opinion, and partially out of necessity due to time. He revitalized the John Williams Superman theme and the Batman 89 theme, which I would argue does not work for either versions of these characters. That just doesn't fit. The tone is different. The musical style clashes because you have a lot of soundscape based digital work being done by Hans Zimmer, and then you're gonna try to tell me that this Superman, who's had themes that are very loud and bombastic, is like, now it's a march from like the 70s, which is excellent work by John Williams. It's amazing, but it doesn't fit the character. Junkie XL has confirmed that he is recording more music for this new version of Zack Snyder's Justice League. He's doing more work. He's put out some teasers, and it sounds freaking amazing, at least to me. It fits what I would imagine. I haven't
listened to the teasers, so I don't really have an opinion yet.
I'm going to send it to you. It's really good stuff.
We can probably listen to some of that tonight.
Yes, it's very good. Yeah. So obviously the runtime, the theatrical cut was 120 minutes, including credits. And then the new version of Zack Snyder's Justice League is 240 minutes roughly, because it is supposed to be released as a 4-part hour-long episode miniseries, which will be collected as a film when it's done. So that's roughly 240 minutes. That's a lot. That's a huge difference in terms of time. It's quite literally double. Like, that's a lot. Just, oof.
Yep.
The color grading, I think for public audiences, is very clearly the most obvious one.
Yeah, dude, it was so bad.
The theatrical cut got because of the difference in how they shot and the amount of time and studio notes being, hey, we want this movie to be lighter and more family friendly, or however you want to use the terms. It's like they turned the gamma up. It felt, you could tell
it gave it like a really gross texture.
Yeah,
like I felt like I was playing Minecraft again with my gamma all the way up, trying not to use torches.
Same. It was really washed out, even though it was really saturated at the same time.
I had a question back on Junkie XL. You said that it was almost done, or probably
it was literally done.
So I don't understand financially why they would cut that and do something else, and especially like since just the reshoots cost so much money.
Because the current fan opinion by most of the movement is because he was a Snyder loyalist. There have been rumors that are not substantiated that the parting between the Snyders and the studio was not voluntary, or at least not entirely voluntary. And he was a person that had worked with them for a long time, like a lot of the production crew, and did not want to work with anybody else. He either understood the context of like how it was going to get manipulated, and I would imagine just the studio wanting to make the film lighter and more, I didn't want to go there, but more MCU-esque. That's clearly what they were going for.
Of course. Why wouldn't they? They saw that the MCU was making a crap ton of money, so they want to make a crap ton of money too.
Right.
They don't realize that you don't need to be just like them. They have their own thing.
Right. You don't need to copy and paste it.
Yeah. Warner Brothers has never like actually understood DC, because the whole point of DC is multiverse. That's what we should be playing off of, and now that's what we're doing.
Yeah, now we are.
Finally.
It's just amazing we had to get this through all of this garbage to get
before there. They were playing off of multiverse, like, by accident.
Yeah.
And that's what got people confused, because no one understood.
Right. Yeah, it's tonally speaking, it's fairly well in line with Hans Zimmer and his work on the first 2 films of this series. So, I mean, listen to those. If you slapped that onto the theatrical cut of this movie, do you think that would sound even remotely close to right? I don't think so. So I can understand them wanting to. Do I think it's cost effective? Absolutely not. I think that's ridiculous. But if they wanted to remove someone who is going to make this difficult for them to not meet their intended release date, and would be pushing for more tonal consistency with films that the studio wanted to distance themselves from, I could see why they would switch it over. Back to color grading real quick. Something that I think really annoyed the crap out of me mostly about this wasn't even the color change from the usual darker, more blue to white like color palette that most Snyder films have, to the gaudy red. Like, not even that part. It's the fact that the costumes don't look right.
No.
Because they basically turned the gamma up. They modified it in post. The reshoots had very different lighting. So the suits aren't built. They weren't designed by, I believe it's Michael Wilkinson, their costume designer, who has done amazing work. They weren't designed to be used in those sorts of scenarios in that type of lighting circumstances. The creases and the shadows don't show because there's so much light. So it makes, Ben Affleck look like really fat, and he's not. Like, stuff like that. It doesn't show correctly. It doesn't fit with what the production design was made for.
Yeah, everything was designed for how Zack was shooting it.
Wow, it's almost like there's a style to his movies or something.
There was almost like there was a purpose in what they were doing.
What? No.
What?
Yeah, so like that, and obviously just the color, the color difference at the third battle is like, well, it's too dark. You can't have it be at nighttime, so let's make it bright red and orange in some undisclosed time frame. It looks horrible. It makes everything look washed out and cheap. Like, this movie was ridiculously expensive, as I mentioned. Snyder movies they've never looked cheap. The man literally shot a short film on an iPhone that looks as good as a theatrically released blockbuster. The movies don't look cheap. You found a way to make this work look cheap. That's impressive. Like, how did you screw up that bad?
Because they're not freaking artists.
Right. And same thing,
may be a little pretentious, but like you said, he made a good looking movie on an iPhone.
Quite literally. Yeah.
Yeah, that he's an artist.
Yeah,
and a true artist is someone who is able to make good things despite the equipment that they're using.
Right. And yeah, like a lot of the actual CGI artists, the digital artists that have come out, have said pretty much they were forced to redo stuff in insanely small amounts of time. If you know anything about digital art, it's never done, it's just released. However much time you put into it, like, it's just
because there's so much amount of
it's only done when you can't work on it any longer.
Because you can always work on something.
You can always add in more textures and tweak the lighting. And like, it's just a matter of when is it good enough and we have to release it. So they were forced to work with all this new garbagey footage with bad lighting, and it just threw off the whole process. And the same with the set and the costume design. It makes the CGI look even worse because the lighting is not helping it. Instead of casting it in shadow and hiding the problems, it's exposing them with a spotlight.
I hate when people always blame like CGI artists or like costume designers, but just because of bad lighting and bad directing. These guys are hired to do these things, but they aren't given.
They're not magicians.
They're not given like a lot of time. No. You need a lot of time to render crap on on a freaking computer. This isn't just easy shit you can just whip out of your asshole.
Yeah,
I mean,
this takes so much time and computing power and knowledge.
2 to 3 teams consisting of maybe 6 to 8 people to do CGI work
Yeah.
on a small level film.
Yeah, you know how many CGI artists were on this film with the different studios involved? Like,
Tell me how many.
I don't know the specific number, just to be clear, but if I remember roughly how long the credits are and how many people have talked about it, like a few hundred.
Mm-hmm.
Total cast is obviously in the thousands. That's
Of
how big
course.
movies are. Like that's insane. All these people just getting thrown under the bus because they couldn't. The movie
Because
wasn't.
they
gonna
weren't
get
given
pushed.
enough time.
No,
and they
were given
couldn't
bad
work.
material to work.
Yeah,
with.
they couldn't work with what they were planned on being given.
You can't polish a turd.
You can't polish a turd.
Right.
Well,
No,
kinda you can.
it just smears it around the floor. You
Mhm.
You
can't
can
polish
make
it.
it a little shiny, but that's it.
Yeah. So on the topic of CGI, do we want to talk about the mustache?
I don't want to talk about
Even
Jake.
I know about this one.
Oh yeah. So basically, during the reshoots for the film that were headed up by Joss Whedon, Henry Cavill had a mustache because he was filming Mission Impossible at the time,
Yep.
and he was contractually obligated to keep his facial hair.
And that kind of kills me because it doesn't look that great in Mission Impossible. Like they definitely could have shaved it, and he would have been better looking.
I don't even know. I don't honestly.
As
I
a
don't care.
great heterosexual male, I can say that comfortably.
Fair. Yeah, so instead of saying, hey, Paramount, who is in charge of Mission Impossible, you guys have to CGI the hair back onto his face, Paramount said to WB, no, you have to CGI the mustache off of his face. So all of the reshoots, which, as I said, were far more extensive. Once you've watched this, you can see that there's pretty much no Snyder Superman footage in this movie.
Nope.
It's uncanny valley at best. Like they had to paint dots onto his face and like find ways to paint over the mustache pretty much with CGI. It makes his upper lip look ridiculous and stiff and like afterwards there was a fan edit. Even a deep fake looks better than what they did.
Yep.
Genuinely, on an old computer, somebody whipped up a better looking video, not even like one image, like a video of it that looks better than what they did.
Mhm.
You can
I mean,
tell.
come on. What is wrong with a stiff upper lip?
You, my friend, have problems. So this was one of the biggest things for like most people, like in the general audience, to realize, hey, this movie is f***ed up. Because it's obvious. Like you see Henry Cavill and you're like, his face doesn't look right the whole time. There's like 2 shots that don't look like that. It's just weird and awkward and it doesn't look consistent. It's not even consistently bad. It's just different all the time. So that is one of the ways you can see how pervasive the reshoots were. It's everywhere. So one of the really blatantly out of left field parts of this movie in the theatrical cut is the excessive amount of quips and very witty comedy. Snyder films have been called too dark and overly serious. I can understand it, even though I disagree with it. I like the sense of humor they have. Maybe it's just me.
If you don't like it, don't watch it.
Very fair point. Like, so the
And also the quips in Justice League sucked. Like they weren't funny at all.
yeah, at least if you're gonna change it, make it funnier.
The quips
like,
weren't funny at all.
No, there's a couple of them which I didn't totally hate, but it's like brunch. That was a joke that was beaten to death. Pet Cemetery was beaten to death. Basically, The Flash. The Flash was just turned into an absolute goofball.
Does the Flash really? Do we really have to see the Flash falling into Wonder Woman's boobs?
That's
to
the next
make a
point.
joke?
That's a whole point in and of itself.
Well,
Yep.
lump them together here.
I think that's a good segue into that point.
Yeah, so there's a lot of very awkward sexualization in this movie. I would say more objectification than
Mhm.
sexualization. Like these are very good-looking actors and actresses. Let's not deny that. But the reshoots really added in a lot of very gratuitously sexualized stuff, like just copious amounts of ass shots. 99% of Gal Gadot, like it's just ridiculous. It's awkward. It doesn't fit with the tone. Certainly doesn't fit with how Zack Snyder shoots his female leads at all. He doesn't do that. And there's a gag where Ezra Miller's Flash falls onto Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman's bosom and it's really clear that she wasn't actually the one doing it
because you didn't see her face.
Her face was turned, and her body double came out afterwards and said that she had to do that because Gal refused to do it because it's out of character as well as just humiliating. Like, that's not the Flash is not a 10-year-old. Like, no, that's not how that works.
This relationship is not a little boy likes this woman that he sees. No, it's supposed to be a mother-son relationship.
Somewhere, at least
you just turn this into, what are you doing, stepson?
Yeah, really. Like, it's gross, and you can feel it. And it's only this isn't even like it's balanced because they really objectify the men too. Like, yeah, no duh, but not. There aren't just ass shots for no reason. Like, just really literally low-hanging fruit, like just butt shot for no reason. Those don't happen with the dudes.
We did get one with Batman in the shower.
I mean, okay, but that wasn't just an ass shot. That was a back of his body shot. There's
I know. I just wanted. I when we were talking about the BVS, I was going to make a joke about it. And then you just kept going. I'm like, okay, I'll wait to talk about Ben Affleck's butt.
I just want to say that I don't remember all of these ass shots, so maybe they stuck out for some of the viewers and not others.
What Jacob is saying is he's not a butt guy, so he doesn't care. But so that was based on some of the crew had come out and said that there was a lot of that type of behavior from Joss Whedon, which there have been mostly unsubstantiated rumors from other productions of his.
I was just about to say that.
He has some sketchy behavior with women. We should probably leave it there for the sake of maybe being monetized.
Let's leave it there for also time's sake.
His ex-wife, has come out and said that he's basically like a mouthpiece, like a parroting feminist. Like, he's really scummy underneath, and he just talks a talk and then doesn't walk it at all.
Yep.
So it's not surprising at all that this sort of stuff happened. Gal Gadot said that she was like screamed at and like just made to feel like a piece of garbage on set, especially around this decision. Apparently, by an unsubstantiated report from a crew member, said that she was physically threatened to be locked in a room until she decided to cooperate. That's unsubstantiated at the moment, but does that surprise you, like, at all?
It's not hard to believe.
No, I mean, Hollywood's notorious for that sort of garbage anyway, but it's pretty obvious that that's not how a Zack Snyder film is worked on.
No.
Like, the cast and crew love working on it. If you watch
Snyder's a bro.
Yeah, like, you can watch the behind the scenes footage. Everybody loves working with him, even if like the movies aren't that great, if that are not your style or whatever. Like, the people enjoy working on them. And all the stuff from the reshoots was just told to be scummy and gross.
So speaking of sexy, let's talk about that black suit Superman.
Fair. Like, it's delicious. I'll say it. I don't care. It looks great. There's a really cool story behind how this works, actually. So apparently,
can't believe you stole that from him.
In part of the rewrite process, way back at the beginning, WB said that they couldn't have a black suit Superman because it's too sad and depressing or whatever.
It's just too sexy. They just don't like how sexy it is.
Fair.
They're just too insecure about themselves. They're too insecure about themselves that they couldn't let us have our sexy Superman. Okay.
Fair.
A bunch of tuna cans, if I may say so.
Oh my gosh, shut up. So Michael Wilkinson and Zack Snyder collaborated to make the Justice League red and blue suit, which is what they filmed with. It actually has a reflective undersuit. That's why the muscle highlights are really visible.
I was wondering about that when I first
and it looks really bad in the theatrical cut because it was color graded weird and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But the reason they did that was because they were hoping in post-production, either WB would change their minds or they'd just give them the middle finger and they'd physically dial it to black. Though with how the reflections would be needed to make the, not just be matte black with no other colors in it. So it's just part of the process. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's really freaking cool. They designed a special suit just so in post-production, they could turn it black and silver. Like, it's just so cool. And we've seen footage of how good that suit looks now that they are turning it black and silver. And sexy. just all of the yes.
Black and silver.
Yeah. No, still sadly no mullet or beard, but I'll take the black suit.
Yeah, I would have loved a mullet and a beard.
Just for the sake of nostalgia. I would have
like
dug
a
the
shot or
beard
two.
because Henry Cavill in Man of Steel with that beard looked freaking great. I wouldn't have minded that. Mullet, yeah, it's a bit far. But
I want my hairy Superman. I want my hairy man.
Okay.
You just don't want to say it. I'll say it for you, Spencer. Out of all of us, we know that you love him way more.
I'm not going to start talking about Henry Cavill's body hair. We're not going there.
Okay, fine.
Gosh.
Fine.
Another character that was cut out of this film entirely, which is now where we're going. There's a big old list of characters that were cut out of this movie from the theatrical cut. Green Lantern, like not just a Green Lantern, like we saw in the history lesson at the beginning of the movie, like one of the Earth Green Lanterns that's supposed to be in the Justice League, in one way, shape, manner, form, was cut out of this movie entirely. There is some heavy speculation from a lot of the fans that there is an actor named Sam Benjamin who confirmed he worked on this film. His role was cut out. He apparently had like 20 or 30 minutes worth of footage by his own reports, and has also liked a lot of him as Green Lantern fan art, and he had some photos of him in military attire, apparently, from on set. So you can put two and two together. It's not confirmed, but it's very, very, very strongly suggested, because there's like no other alternative that makes sense, that some form of Hal Jordan or Guy Gardner does exist in the actual Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is bloody sweet. I love Green Lantern. Please don't say you hate Green Lantern. I will not friend you anymore.
I don't hate him. It's just he's not my favorite character except for Jon Stewart. Moving on to another green fellow that we love that was cut.
Martian Manhunter was in this film.
Love me some Martian Manhunter.
Yes.
That brings me back to the Justice League cartoon and Justice League Unlimited.
Yes, Henry Lennox, who portrayed General Swanwick in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, was confirmed by some storyboard panels and then confirmed by his own mouth and Zack that he was playing Martian Manhunter the whole time. And he is in this film in his Martian form in some capacity or another, and either joins the League or is at least connected to them in this film. And one would assume is being planted for use later on in Justice League 2 and 3 at the time.
Cool.
This is freaking sweet. I always loved Martian Manhunter when I was a kid, as you said, from the Justice League cartoon.
Right.
Because I had no exposure to him before that. I was like, oh, who's this thing? And it's a really interesting character. He's OP as hell. But he's
same thing with Green Lantern. Like, somebody asked me yesterday, I think, about which Green Lantern I like, and they were a little bit insensitive as to their description of the Green Lanterns. But I was like, dude, I like both, but the second option I like because of the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
I totally get that. I like all of them,
childhood.
but absolutely. So more characters that we know of that have been confirmed to be getting put back into the movie, essentially. Iris West. There are many, many scenes with Iris West, who is the Flash's love interest, as well as Ryan Choi, who is a scientist that works at Star Labs. He, in the comics, is the superhero, the Atom. Nobody really knows if he was supposed to become the Atom or if it was just Easter egg material, but a whole role got cut out. Volko from Aquaman was in this movie, apparently. And a lot of the stuff he was doing was replaced with Mara in reshoots. So
I have to be honest, back on Iris West, the only interaction I've had with her is from the CW Flash, so a little bit bitter tasting, to be honest.
That's fair. I agree with you that Iris West from the CW show is rough, to say the least. But from the comics, she's excellent. I really, really have... That's always been a romance I can get behind. They're just excellent stuff. I like seeing the Flash be in love. It's very fun. So as I said, Willem Dafoe is in this movie, which is awesome because you always want more Dafoe. Like, why would you deny that?
I'm a little bit of a Willem Dafoe fan myself.
Nice.
You all just like him because he's Green Goblin.
No, I like him because he's a weird, angry man who is a good actor and stuff. Also, yes, Green Goblin.
Also, our sailor boy.
Yes.
Our sailor, our naked.
You're a fan of me lobster.
A fan of me lobster, are you?
I still hate that movie.
You're wrong. It's okay, but you're wrong.
It's okay to be wrong, Jacob.
So Desaad, who is one of Darkseid's right-hand men, like Steppenwolf, was cut out of this movie in his entirety. We didn't even know that he was going to be in this movie until after the teaser for Zack Snyder's Justice League came out and revealed, oh yeah, this character's in here. He's basically his maniacal torturing henchman sort of deal. He's a spindly man who tortures people and rips them apart and is sneaky and stuff.
Isn't he like his priest or whatever?
Kinda.
He's like pseudo priest.
Something like that.
What a Catholic.
Oh my gosh.
Casuals.
And definitely the biggest role that got cut out of this movie is Darkseid. You cut out Darkseid, you idiot.
How could you cut out Darkseid, our mean, big baddie, with that fatty, okay?
Like,
nerd.
So he was not the primary antagonist of this movie. Steppenwolf is the primary antagonist of Zack Snyder's Justice League, but he is being sent by Darkseid to
the big baddie himself.
Yeah, like the baddie of the DC Comics universe. In every multiverse, in every plane of reality, Darkseid is there.
Mm-hmm. Darkseid is.
It's dark. Like, bro, you cut out Darkseid. What the?
You can't cut out Darkseid. Darkseid is.
Exactly.
How dare you?
Exactly. So he was actually in the history lesson that like the original invasion of Earth. I think it's like 1,000 or 2,000 years before this movie. Which we saw in the film was Steppenwolf doing that. It was actually both of them. They quite literally copy-pasted Steppenwolf to be doing what Darkseid was doing. It's really dumb. He was originally invading Earth, and this is when he was known as Yuxas, before he was even Darkseid, before he has all of his special Darkseid powers, which I'm not going to get into. He was already...
An episode for itself.
Yes. He is already this freaking crazy new god tyrant, and they cut him out. And that's apparently we see him basically from Zack Snyder's mouth be baby Darkseid in effect before he becomes actual Darkseid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in not a lot of this movie. We basically know every scene he's in. He's in the history lesson. Apparently there is some form of a nightmare vision, as we saw in Batman v Superman. There is another one or two where he is in, as well as at the end of the movie when Steppenwolf dies.
So let me explain the nightmare vision in BVS, Batman versus Superman.
Yes.
That's when Batman wakes up, right? He wakes up in like a deserty area, almost like, Iraq, Afghanistan kind of, or, something deserty like that. And then climbs out of the tunnel that he's in, and he sees the Omega symbol drawn in the dirt.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else in that vision, is there?
Basically, to explain that, it's a glimpse into the potential future of this universe where Superman falls prey to the anti-life equation, which is a mind control superpower, basically, that Darkseid cultivates in different planets and realities. It is a mathematical equation of non-mathematical things. So it's like despair and hopelessness and anger and alienation. It, depending on which continuity you're in, it has different terms. But
to sum it up, it is the make good into bad equation.
Pretty much. So
it's going to make Superman bad, just to...
Yeah. So in that is a sense of Batman's paranoia, as well as the Flash traveling back in time literally in that scene. It's like a rift in time that he is seeing into.
That's why we have that scene in BVS. It's not a dream sequence or anything.
Right,
It
but
is
for a
an
casual
actual
audience, you could just say it's his paranoia manifesting as a dream. It has layers. It's an onion.
It can be that. Oh, shut up, you little Shrek boy. You and your green Shrek shirt you got going on.
Yeah. So in that is hinting towards the plan of this whole arc, which is not what this episode is about. I would love to get into that, but yeah.
No,
so,
move on.
Yeah, Darkseid is sending out Steppenwolf to essentially cultivate the mother boxes, as well as take advantage of the fact that Superman is dead. There is no Kryptonian protector of this planet. As some of the marketing material said, no Green Lanterns, no Kryptonian, like he's going to take the planet and then continue to grow the equation. That is his end goal. So cutting out Darkseid in its entirety, it's setting up the actual bad guy of this full series. That's just insane. And to give you an idea how much of this was, how much work was put into this role, the actor Ray Porter, who does a lot of TV roles, he's an audiobook narrator. He has an excellent voice, by the way. Just to put that out, amazing work. I've listened to some of the audiobooks he's done.
Career.
Yeah, he is. He also has a large role in the Audible original Sandman production, which I thought he did very well in that as well.
I really want to hear that.
It's so good. So he has been another one of the big supporters of the movement. He did motion capture work for this role. Not a lot, but he did mocap. And at some point or another, it'd be cool to hear his Darkseid voice. He has said he can't perform it in front of anybody at the moment, which is kind of lame. But yeah, so that's just the large roles. There are even more roles that got cut out of this movie. There's a good dozen named important characters that were just removed entirely. So that's hopefully an idea of how many things were freaking changed. They're two entirely separate movies.
Wait, let me count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 topics that Spencer had listed, and you can Google each and every single one of them pretty easily to find out what is wrong with the theatrical cut of Justice League. I especially suggest that you Google the black suit Superman because
it's so good. So that is the end of the condensed summary of the comparison section. So on to why it matters that the Snyder Cut is released, primarily for artistic integrity. It's fanboyism and all that sort of fun stuff, but really at the end of it, it's artistic integrity. You hire a director and a writer and producers and all these artists to set out to do this thing. You agree to let them have this plan and to execute it. You're going to fund them and let them do what they're going to do. And then you start ripping it to shreds, firing people, replacing people, and modifying what they're doing. It's scummy at best. It's not living up to what you agreed to, even in contract form, even just legally speaking, it's bad. It's just kind of pathetic. And then it affects the consistency of the DCEU, these series of interconnected films. There is less connective tissue and consistency between tone and directors because you've replaced and ripped out so much work that was done. So the movies make less sense cohesively. The tones jump all over the place rather than letting the artists do the tonal progression and character growth that they had planned. Now it's just chopped into little bits and people are basically arguing over it. And now we don't even know exactly what continuity, what movies are in because of how they have to distinct them now. A big part that has been coming to light recently is the sense of inclusivity and diversity that Zack Snyder's cast brings. He has a very wide variety of people from so many different walks of life in his cast, named roles, stunt people everywhere. And in the end of the theatrical cut, whether or not it's a coincidence, basically every single person of color was cut out of the film except Cyborg and his dad. It could be a coincidence, but it looks sketchy. At least it looks sketchy. So you're cutting out all these voices that should be getting projected, and instead you're just silencing them, and it just bad.
So another reason why this also matters is because, yeah, we can say, oh, it's just another one of those Hollywood movies that are like something bad happened, everyone's getting screwed over, whatever. It's like every other movie getting screwed over, but this is almost like this is the start of a movement where we're not allowing Hollywood to get away with it anymore. We're not standing for that as fans and as humans. People need to get the credit where credit is due.
Yeah, like that's other stuff that I wasn't going to necessarily go into, but like there are so many people that worked on the film that aren't even credited in the theatrical cut, like hairstylists, like everybody. So many people that just didn't.
Which goes with the continuity of things.
Right, they are really important. So you're just taking away credit from people, as well as the fan investment. Like as Jacob said at the beginning, the Snyder cult runs deep. It's a really big fan base of people. And these things mean a lot to them. And obviously, you know, that is the least, I would say least important out of everything. It's just, hey, fans getting what they want. Like we're consuming a product. That's the more important part is that people are getting paid for the work they're doing. They're getting credited. But also like you treat your fans well. That this is what they said that they wanted in one capacity or another. They paid with their pocket, and you're telling them that this is not what you're going to do anymore. And they spoke. They said, hey, this theatrical cut of the movie sucks ass. We're not paying to watch it. Most of the public really, really rejected it anyway. And they have vocally said, hey, we're not going to watch some of your movies because you've been screwing over so many people. We're going to continually knock on your door, basically. Always hitting Twitter trending. Hey, you know, we're still here. We're going to pay
Release
for
the
it.
Snyder Cut.
If you do it, we'll pay for it. I will pay for this 10 times over. I don't care. I want it. And just the sense of how much money the studio can make off of this. Basically, you have this movie that's like 90% finished, sitting in a vault that you've already lost money on because you screwed it over. Like,
why wouldn't you make money off of things that people want?
Like, as I said, like most of the money was already put into it. Just finish it. Give the man however much money he needs to finish the little bit that needed to be done. And release the stupid thing. It's not going to cost. You don't have to market it. You literally,
all of this is just super petty shit.
Yeah.
This
like
whole
that's
thing's
getting
just
to
petty.
behind the scenes stuff with WB Pictures. It actually is petty.
But onto the money.
Like
onto the money.
You don't have to market the movie. You literally do not have to market Zack Snyder's Justice League at this point because there are so many millions of fans that say, hey, I will support this 10 times over when it comes out. I will pay for it. I'll watch it in theaters. I'll buy a subscription service. I'll pay for it on disc. Anything.
Whatever it takes, I just want it.
It's hit Twitter trending like 50 times. I'm not really exaggerating either. Like that gets all the attention in the world. It's been talked about by every major like publication. Come on. You don't even have to put money into it to market it. Just put it out. And then the last little bit, why it matters to me, which now I get to get all weird and personal. So this iteration of these characters in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman hit at a specific time in my life where a lot of the themes and attitudes were very personal to me in very vague terms. It hit all of the right chords for me, or at least most of them. It was important. It helped me. In a sense, it's going to sound really tacky, but like it helped me feel less alone at the time. Like it was like, hey, there are other people interested in these characters in such a way that I am. There are people that want to watch these things be taken seriously or be presented in such a way. The themes and growth that the characters go through of alienation and rejection and like kind of rejecting destiny and anger and rage and loss and overcoming trauma.
It's a emotional connection for us and why it matters.
And that is a very subjective thing, but at least for me,
it's
oh
valid.
My gosh, it hit everything. And it like, I still get pretty teary watching both of those movies. Even now,
if people are valid to be invest as much as like how they are invested in sports, we can have our validation in being invested in these fictional characters.
Exactly. It just ticked all my boxes. And
there's only the difference in what we're being shown, not in how we are connected to them.
Right.
Even though they're not emotionally connected on a like, I don't know, like heartfelt emotion, they're connected in their money and their time and other like emotions and connection with people, just how we are connected in certain ways like that. So it is this is valid to us, and we don't really have to have a reason, but just to say it's valid.
Right. That's pretty much the only way to put it without getting into really weird specific things.
Yeah, I'm trying
with me.
not to. That's why
Yeah.
it's kind of like awkward pause.
Well, yeah, such is life. So
Such
too
is
long,
life.
didn't read summary. Justice League 2017 was barely a movie. It was a wrecked production that was taken away from people that were actually producing a movie. This new movie is pretty much entirely different outside from basic plot structure and deserves to be seen. Bada bing, bada boom. Hashtag release the Snyder Cut. Does anybody have anything to say, or am I done?
I think we hit all the bases pretty well.
I hit all your bases.
You will do a lot more of that tonight.
Oh boy.
Oh, so I just want to. We've clearly teased it before, but I'm gonna go full ruthless editor from now on. Anytime Spencer mentions Justice League or Zack Daddy, we're gonna insert, at least to start, a sexual sound just for the humor of it. But as time goes on, maybe it'll be like a bell gong or something. But just something.
Maybe we should make it.
Go,
We should make it the ding of the mother boxes.
Oh no!
No, you're just gonna get turned on by that.
Exactly. So there will be some weird editing from now on.
I'm okay with that.
Probably have to explain every time.
Such is life.
Such is life.
That's okay. So yeah,
and we will be doing the same thing for Colin with Hellboy.
Oh
in
yeah,
a few months.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You better. I'm excited for that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can even sample you some of my own sexual noises.
We'll do that later. So thanks for listening to this Snyder Cut special of the Dime Comic Bros podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Send us an email at dimecomicbros@gmail.com. I can't speak English after speaking English for so long.
Speaking English, I cannot.
Yeah, pretty much. You can visit our website at dimecomicbros.podbean.com. You can listen to this podcast pretty much anywhere you can imagine, including YouTube. And obviously, you are listening to it somewhere, so that's cool.
I'll do the
That's
list.
appreciated.
We have iTunes and Spotify and Google Podcasts and what's that last one that I saw?
iHeartRadio.
Oh no, there's one more.
Google Podcasts.
I already said that one.
It's like all the things.
Keep talking. I'll freaking find it.
You can also visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dime Comic Bros. As the name says, we're all broke here. Like, we get it. But if for whatever reason you do want to support the podcast, it would be greatly appreciated. We have lots of different tiers. You can vote on topics. You get a cool sticker. You get your name shouted out. All sorts of fun stuff, as well as commissioned art by Colin.
Yep, I'll be doing some of that.
Overcast. We are on Overcast.
I don't even know what that is.
I know that.
You literally submitted it everywhere. Holy cow. We are literally everywhere. Yeah. So thanks for listening.
Sponsored art by Colin.
Yeah. Mr. Artsy Boy.
What's up?
Patreon. So get some of that sexy art. You can see a sample of it on our Facebook profile page.
And basically everywhere else.
It's pretty impressive that I know that because I, the boomer, do not even have Facebook. So
you quite literally do not. So yeah. Colin, make a joke.
Oh. You can't just do that to me. You can't just pop out of nowhere like a boner in the bed together.
Oh,
you can't pop a tent on me,
That is impressive. I'm very impressed with that on the spot improv.
That's the type of improv I can do. It usually involves crossing all of the lines and many people's boundaries. It's very fun.
I'll cross your line.
You can unplug me now. That's the end of the episode. I knew as soon as I started heating up my dinner, you guys were finally gonna get this to work.
Well, it was mainly a Wi-Fi issue. My dad cut the Wi-Fi cord on us.
Quite literally, he cut the cable and had to replace it.
Oof.
Yeah. I wish I had saved the recordings of me testing because they were funny. It was me saying Snyder and nut a lot. Switching again! How many times? We've switched chairs like 4 or 5 times.
That's fine. We're switching.
That's cool.
We're either dominant or subservient.
Bro, you're a bottom.
I'm not, though.
I'm not! You are.
Sure.
Maybe you're not. You want to be bottom. Because you're never bottom. You want to be bottom.
Sure.
Colin probably stands while he does it.
What?
Colin probably stands while he does it.
I like your settings for changing the volume. That's cute.
What?
It's Jake saying beep boop. I like it.
Yeah.
I think we're good. Do you really want to sit like that? How do you do that on a wooden chair?
I'll be fine.
I'm just curious. Like, actually, how the do you do that? I can't. It kills my ankles.
Have you seen my ankles?
I mean, they're chunky, but like
they're rough. Look. Oh, actually, they got smooth after high school. In high school, I just kind of sat like this in my plastic chair.
Oh no, I can't see Jacob. Where'd he go? Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about the Snyder Cut.
Oh,
so that's fun.
Before we get into this, another kind of housekeeping. So if it seems a little awkward between us three talking, we have a problem where one of us has to wear headphones to hear Jacob because we're in a Zoom meeting, and I can't hear him. I can hear him a little bit. So if it sounds awkward between Jacob and I, that is the problem.
Yeah, we should.
It's funny because I tested this theory earlier and said that Colin could lick my booty hole, and Colin did not react at all. So
yeah, he can't totally hear you. We literally just need to get a headphone splitter. The fact that
I think I have one somewhere laying around here.
Well, next week we're going to use it. If we have to do this exact setup again, we're going to use that next week.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, back to the Justice League.
Yeah. So there is this. So after the success of the Dark Knight trilogy, Warner Bros. And Warner Brothers Pictures approached. Guys, for the love of.
Not even 10 minutes in, and Jacob and I are trying to communicate through our own sign language.
My gosh.
Sorry.
Oh, my word. Because, not everybody knows this sorts of crazy stuff. That's just the way it goes. I'm going to sneeze.
It looks like Colin has a question.
Colin, do you have a question, or are you just
Nope.
Okay? You're just being. He's just snapping his fingers
With his hand all the way stretched out above his head.
How are your pits already sweaty? You just took a shower, dude.
Maybe he didn't dry his pits.
Sweaty, it's sweat stain.
Oh, moist.